Hello, and thanks for joining us. My name's Lee Langford. I'm a Research Director at Harris Interactive, and I'll be one of your hosts today as we consider how mobile network operators can connect more effectively with their customers. I'm here with Debbie Senior, our Senior Stakeholder Relationship Consultant. Whereas my focus is on the mobile sector, Debbie will provide a broader expert opinion based on her work across sectors within our business. The webcast today will last about 20 minutes, and our contact details will appear on screen at the end. Do get in touch with us if you have any questions or if you'd like to debate any of the points that we raise.
Harris has been working in customer relationship measurement for many years, and over that time we've developed a composite relationship score metric. Many of you will be familiar with Net Promoter Score, and advocacy is one component of our score. However, we know the importance of connecting with customers on both heart and mind. That is the emotional as well as the rational. So we link metrics of trust and whether customers feel valued together with the more traditional measures of satisfaction and recommendation. This tells us how strong the relationship is now. We then connect these with future intentions, continue to use, preferred provider, and uniqueness. Achieving uniqueness or differentiation is hard, but it is actually a clear sign of business success as it indicates the sustainability of the relationship. If you are offering something different, then why would a customer go elsewhere? And it's particularly key in this sector due to product and price commoditization, which can make all providers look very similar, and where there is a need to stand out on other elements like customer service to drive retention. From these metrics, we create a relationship score for each customer, and depending on their level of rational, emotional, and intentional engagement, we can then define how connected they are. Here you see 6 connected groups, ranging from fully connected to indifferent and disconnected. And ultimately, companies should be aiming to increase the numbers of customers who fall into the highest 2 levels. That is fully connected and emotionally and rationally connected, and that should protect them from switching to another provider. So during this webcast, we'll identify what the mobile phone market looks like and why it's important for providers to do more to build stronger relationships with their customers.
Before getting into the data, it's worth briefly considering 2 factors that will have an impact on the mobile sector moving forward. One of these is brand new and one has been around for a while now. Firstly, as of last week, January the 23rd, consumers no longer have to stick with telecoms providers that raise prices unexpectedly after promising a fixed price contract. And following an Ofcom ruling, operators must now give customers 30 days notice of such changes and allow them to switch with no penalty charges if they choose to do so. Now, clearly, the more connected a customer is, the harder it will be for them to switch, even if they have to put up with a price increase. And secondly, although 4G has been around for a while, the battle for more profitable 4G consumers is only just getting going. EE was first to market, of course, and already has over 2 million 4G subscribers. And other operators are starting to compete more aggressively. Again, consumer connectedness will play a key role in determining how easy or difficult consumers find it to switch providers when they're looking at 4G instead of upgrading with their existing provider. If we consider historic switching behaviour in the sector at an overall level, consumers fall into 3 categories of equal sizes. Firstly, those who have never switched operator, then those who've only switched operator once, and thirdly, those who've switched on 2 or more occasions. Now, in context, the mobile market has historically seen less switching behaviour than the energy market, for example. Retail banking, by contrast, has been a much more stable sector, with over half of consumers sticking with the same bank throughout their life. In fact, people are more likely to get divorced than they are to leave their bank. But enough of other sectors just for now. Let's move on and focus on mobile and look at how connected consumers are to their provider. Overall, we see a very mixed picture, and we've segmented mobile phone users into 6 categories according to how connected they feel, working clockwise here from fully connected in purple at 1 o'clock through to disconnected in black at 11 o'clock. Our data is based on an online survey that we conducted with 2,700 mobile phone users and bill payers in the second half of 2013. Only 3 in 10 have a very strong relationship with their provider, what we describe as a fully connected or an emotionally and rationally connected relationship. This means that they rate their provider 4 or 5 out of 5 on all 7 of our key relationship criteria. Around a quarter are either rationally connected or emotionally connected, scoring the relationship above 3 but lower than 4 out of 5. And a whopping 48% are either indifferent to their provider or disconnected, scoring the relationship 3 out of 5 or lower. And in fact, the average relationship score that we see for mobile network operators in the UK is 3.5 out of 5, 3.5. This is far from impressive and suggests that operators are already having to work very hard to retain a high number of ambivalent or disaffected customers.
Earlier, we mentioned the Net Promoter Score. As you see here, NPS of different segments varies considerably from the overall industry average of -9. But there is a clear correlation between how connected a customer is and their advocacy level. Those fully connected customers really are your ambassadors, but those disconnected are your detractors. But another danger group are the indifferents. And when you're deciding whether it's worthwhile making the effort to improve your relationship with them, you really may want to look at the potential negative word of mouth that they're sharing with others.
As well as looking at mobile network operators in our research, we also considered a number of other categories of service provider, including financial services, utilities, insurance and pay TV. And this benchmark data tells us that mobile network operators sit alongside financial services and pay TV companies in the top tier. But within this top tier, it's retail banks that have the highest level of full connection at 24%, compared with mobile at just 19%. Car and home insurance providers make up the second tier with lower levels of full connection at around 15%. And energy providers sit apart from the rest with significantly higher levels of disconnection. Now, we'll not drill down further into these other industries today because we're focusing on mobile, of course. But other webcasts covering financial services, for example, are available on demand on our website. And does it really matter if a customer is indifferent to or disconnected from a mobile provider? Okay, the NPS scores indicate that they're probably not singing your praises if someone asks them for a recommendation, but are they actually likely to switch to another provider? The data suggests that our segmentation is very powerful because we see indifferent customers 4 times more likely to switch than fully connected customers. And the vast majority of disconnected customers are likely to switch as soon as they're able to do so. And the new Ofcom ruling may help to expedite this, of course. Let's see if we can identify any factors that have a significant impact on how connected consumers feel to their provider. One obvious area to explore is complaints. Now, it's said that we're increasingly a nation that's willing to complain, and our social life monitor, which tracks social media use, certainly backs this up. In the most recent wave of social life, 28% told us they use social media to complain about service providers. Interestingly, MNOs are most likely to be subjected to social media criticism, more than ISPs or utility companies even. And typically this happens on two of the more popular sites, on Facebook and on Twitter.
But with the exception of disconnected customers, it's not the act of complaining that drives connection levels. There is very little difference in the number of complaints from fully connected to indifferent customers, with the average being around 30%. But where we do see complaints making a difference is when they're not fully resolved. Now, 67% of complaints are fully resolved for those who are fully connected, and this compares with just around a third for those who are indifferent and only 3% for those who are disconnected. So worryingly, complaint resolution in the mobile sector seems to be significantly worse than in retail banking, and that's an industry that's experienced quite a bit of negative coverage over the past few years. We also know that the financial cost of handling complaints is very high, so clearly this is an area to prioritise and invest in.
What about the level of interaction that consumers have with their mobile network operators? Does this have an impact on their connectedness? And the simple answer to this is yes, it does. Here we're looking at any type of contact that customers have, either inbound or outbound. And what we can see is that the greater the level of interaction the consumer has with the provider, the more connected they feel. In-store interactions stand out as being significantly higher for the three most connected segments. And social media interaction is also very influential, approximately twice as high among the three most connected segments as among the three least connected. Effective handling of social media engagement, whether positive or negative, is likely to be increasingly important in future as more and more consumers choose to engage in this manner. But let's not run away with the idea that all mobile network operators need to do to increase the level of connection their consumers feel is to increase the amount of contact. It's also very much about the quality of that contact, as with the powerful complaint resolution correlations that Debbie just took us through. In this chart, we're looking at the positive responses made about various aspects of the product and service offer that operators provide. As we might expect, there's a clear correlation here too between satisfaction levels and connectedness. But what else can we learn from this data? Well, we've highlighted the four elements where we see the biggest differences in scores between those who are fully connected and those who are disconnected or indifferent. And what comes through very clearly is that it's the human touch that really matters when it comes to feeling connected, with 3 of the 4 asterisked areas relating to the performance of customer-facing employees, their professionalism, their know-how, and their ability to create the impression of treating the consumer as an individual.
We can take this analysis a bit further by looking at where the largest satisfaction gaps with delivery of the experience are according to the different connected levels. So starting at the bottom, there are quite a few things that move a purely rationally connected customer to being emotionally connected, including better communication, staff interactions, and feeling treated as an individual. And then to move from being purely emotionally connected to both emotionally and rationally connected, we see a few new key elements around staff knowledge and empathy, ease of contact, competitive charges, and actually feeling rewarded for loyalty. But ultimately, those who are fully connected are also experiencing stronger engagement on staff professionalism, range of products, value for money, and innovation. And although this is a simplified example, providers need to be aware of these triggers so they can more easily meet customer needs and improve their loyalty.
If we look at things from the opposite perspective, by which I mean the negative responses made, not surprisingly the negative scores are much higher among those who are disconnected or indifferent. But which particular aspects of the offer see the greatest contrast in responses? Well, again, we see that customer-facing employees are vital when it comes to connectedness, with staff empathy, problem-solving capability, and treating the consumer as an individual making up 3 of the 5 most differentiating elements. But communications are also very important, with the amount of outbound communications received and allowing consumers to communicate how they want to, also highly differentiating. So what else did we learn about communications preferences in our survey? We set out a number of scenarios for consumers and asked them which method or channel, to use industry speak, they would ideally choose for each type of contact. The results point clearly to the need to provide different options for customers, as no single channel dominates. Customers tend to want the option of talking to a customer services operative on the phone if they're looking for a quick response. For example, if they want to report a lost phone, query a bill, or report a fault. Online interactions are more likely to be favoured for less time-sensitive interactions, such as making a payment or contract renewal. And consumers like the option of a store visit when they're changing their handset. We've looked at the mobile network operator market overall so far, but is the market homogeneous, or are some operators more connected to their customers than others? Actually, there are significant differences between operators. Tesco Mobile stands out, with 65% of customers connected to some degree, compared with the overall market average, 52%. This strong finding aligns with Tesco Mobile being named Best Telecom Services Provided by Which last year. And Virgin Mobile's above average performance shows that MVNOs should always be taken into account in this market. Of the MNOs, O2 also fares reasonably well in our data, and according to Ofcom figures, for monthly contracts had the fewest consumer complaints in Q4 of last year. However, even the best-in-class operators in mobile don't match the levels of connectedness that we see for retail banks, where award-winning banks like First Direct, Nationwide and Cooperative achieve 40% or higher fully connected scores and have advocacy scores of plus 30 and above. So there's still much more to do in the mobile sector. The weakest level of connectedness that we see is to the newest market entrant, EE. This suggests that the introduction of 4G, ongoing in the case of EE and ramping up in the case of Vodafone, O2 and 3, is likely to have a significant impact on connectedness across the market overall.
And levels of connectedness correlate with brand perceptions and momentum. O2, Virgin, Tesco and 3 have the most strong perceptions on treating customers fairly, reliability, ease of interaction and putting customers first. EE is the most inconsistent brand. Although it has strong perceptions for being ahead of the game, which is great for attracting new customers looking for innovation, this doesn't appear to be supported by a strong enough customer experience or retention strategy. Perhaps it's not surprising that EE has the most disconnected and indifferent customers. The particular concern for EE is that the promise has not lived up to expectations, especially in the context of 4G being significantly more expensive than 3G services. And overall, we sense that operators are currently more focused on the rollout of 4G and increasing customer acquisition and higher ARPU than they actually are on improving customer relationships and loyalty. Our research shows that this is a risky approach and it potentially leaves significant numbers of customers underwhelmed and open to switching. In other words, a bit like when 3G was initially rolled out, have the lessons been learnt? Maybe only time will tell.
So, summing up, there are 3 key points that we want to briefly recap for you. Firstly, mobile is a market that historically has seen quite high levels of switching behaviour, and right now many consumers are either indifferent to or even disconnected from their provider. Some operators are better positioned than others, but market developments like the new Ofcom ruling and increased competition for profitable 4G business may lead many of these at-risk consumers to look more closely at switching, making an already competitive market even tougher for operators. Although the big MNOs will no doubt be very focused on the rollout of 4G and increased upselling and acquisition, they mustn't forget to focus on connecting effectively with their existing customer bases, including those who are perfectly happy with 3G for the time being. And other research that we've conducted suggests that this is still the majority of mobile phone users. Our overall recommendation is that operators should continue to invest in customer-facing staff on ensuring communications are optimised whilst the transition to 4G takes place.
So many thanks for joining us today, and we hope we provided some food for thought. And if you've got any comments or questions or want more information, please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. And all that's left is to say goodbye from both of us.